There are people who seem to move through the same world as everyone else, yet something about them feels different. While others carry tension in their shoulders, replay conversations in their minds, or feel pressure from things that haven't even happened yet, these individuals remain strangely steady, not because life treats them gently, but because their reaction to life seems quieter. At first, it almost feels like they are simply better at handling stress. But if you observe closely, it's not that stress never reaches them. It's that it doesn't fully take root in the same way. The question is not what they are doing differently on the surface, but what is happening beneath their perception of reality. Most people assume stress comes from external events, deadlines, expectations, uncertainty, conflict. But psychologically, stress is not the event itself. It is the interpretation of the event combined with how much importance the mind assigns to it. Two people can experience the same situation and walk away with entirely different internal outcomes. One carries it like weight. The other lets it pass like information. People who rarely appear stressed often have a different relationship with interpretation itself. Their minds are less interested in turning every situation into a threat or a problem that must be solved immediately. Instead, there is a subtle delay between what happens and what it means. That small gap changes everything. In that gap, reactions soften. The mind does not immediately escalate reality into urgency. Modern life, however, is built to remove that gap. Constant notifications, rapid decisions, social comparison, and information overload train the brain to respond quickly, almost impulsively. Over time, this creates a pattern where everything feels slightly more important than it actually is. Not because it truly is, but because the nervous system never fully rests. It stays slightly activated, always preparing for the next thing. In contrast, calmer individuals often have a different internal rhythm. Their attention is less fragmented, not necessarily because they have fewer responsibilities, but because they are less emotionally entangled with each signal demanding their attention. A message is just a message. A delay is just a delay. A criticism is not immediately transformed into identity. And this is where something subtle appears. For many people, stress is not just about pressure. It is about identity. The mind quietly begins to attach meaning to every situation. What it says about me, what it means about my future, how it reflects my worth. This is where emotional weight builds. Not in the event itself, but in the self-referential layer added on top of it. People who appear less stressed often carry fewer of these identity-based interpretations. Their sense of self is not constantly being negotiated with every external change. So situations remain situational. They do not become personal narratives unless truly necessary. There is also something happening at the level of expectation. The human brain is deeply wired to predict outcomes. When reality does not match prediction, stress emerges. But some individuals simply hold fewer rigid expectations about how things should unfold. This does not mean they don't care. It means their mind leaves more space for variation. And in that space, disappointment has less material to form from. Another layer sits in how uncertainty is treated. For many, uncertainty feels like discomfort that must be resolved quickly. The mind rushes to fill unknowns with assumptions, often negative ones. Yet there are people who allow uncertainty to remain unfinished, not because they are passive, but because they do not urgently demand closure from every unknown. In that, openness anxiety has less structure to stabilize itself. But there is a deeper psychological mechanism that often goes unnoticed. The modern mind is frequently overstimulated, especially by constant micro-rewards, quick messages, short videos, instant feedback loops. This conditions the brain to expect frequent emotional movement. When life becomes slow or uncertain, the mind interprets it as something missing. That absence is sometimes felt as stress. Those who seem less stressed often have a different tolerance for emotional silence. They are not constantly seeking stimulation to regulate their internal state. So quiet moments do not feel uncomfortable. They feel neutral, and neutrality, in a world addicted to stimulation, can look like peace. Still, it would be misleading to assume that these people exist in a permanent state of calm. They also experience pressure, doubt, and emotional fluctuation. The difference is more about how long those states are held and how quickly the mind builds stories around them. It is also important to recognize something often ignored in psychological explanations. Sometimes there is no hidden mechanism at work. Some people are simply different in temperament. Biological sensitivity varies. Personality traits vary. Life experiences vary. Not everything needs to be decoded into a pattern or system. Some minds are naturally more reactive, others naturally more steady, and both are valid expressions of human variation. What often gets overlooked is that stress is not always a sign of weakness, nor is calmness always a sign of mastery. They are different ways the nervous system organizes experience. One is not necessarily superior to the other. They simply reveal different relationships with the same reality. If there is something to quietly observe here, it is not that one group has solved life while the other has not. It is that meaning is being constantly constructed in the background of every experience. Some minds construct it quickly and intensely, others loosely and lightly, and that construction shapes everything that follows. So when someone appears unusually unaffected by pressure, it may not be because life touches them less. It may be because fewer things are converted into permanent internal weight. Less is carried forward emotionally from one moment to the next. And perhaps the most grounding realization is this: the human mind was never designed to experience modern levels of constant input, constant comparison, and constant anticipation. Everyone is adapting in real time, using different strategies, often without realizing it. In the end, what looks like never getting stressed is rarely an absence of stress itself. It is a different relationship with it, a different filtering system, a different way of letting experience pass through without turning every moment into something that must be held, solved, or defined. And once that is understood, the contrast between people stops feeling like a mystery that needs solving. It starts to look more like what it has always been: a quiet spectrum of human ways to exist inside the same world, each one valid, each one simply trying to find its own balance in the noise.